Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pod TV's The Media Talk Show. Today with us, we have Sasha Starr, who has several wonderful TV shows that help inspire investing, improving your financial wallet so that you can get out there and spend more money if you want to, or keep saving and retire early. And he also has a great chess show. With us also, we have one of the founders of Pod TV, Nick Palaveda, all the way from Raleigh, North Carolina. Good morning, Nick. How are you
Yeah,
doing? Are you feeling
well, I'm
better
feeling
today?
better now that I'm feeling bad with my computer blipped off and then it blipped back on again. And
Well, we saw I was having that problem, so it might be a Raleigh Durham hiccup. And then we also have Rick Rosner with us today, the host of Naked at Night, which is a very fun political talk show that is very entertaining to watch and also just hear about the current events and how we debate them or argue about them. But what a glorious day we have today being here. I have just returned from Las Vegas, the Sin City, or Gin City as they call it, for the Super Bowl, which is where I saw a lot of money being flown through our economic situation or and being spent. It was very interesting to see this year. But one of the things that I participate in is a lot of the charitable contribution programs that are pre-game and pre-Super Bowl. That some that the NFL Super Bowl committee sponsors. Lee Steinberg, who has been sponsoring these for many years, and then the football players themselves. And so, and other great athletes. I have met so many other great athletes while I'm there, but it's very inspirational to see all of these people who have established their wealth and have become very famous in the entertainment world, yet they turn around and you have no idea, what they give back to our community. And it's nice to see this happen. It makes you feel good that people are wanting to give back so much more. One of the biggest emphasis when I was at the Lee Steinberg events was mental health. And FYI, everybody, Pod TV has been invited to sit on Media Row next year with one of its biggest celebrities. Guess who it is, Nick?
I have no idea.
Roman Gabriel. So
Really?
we're
Okay.
going to be a guest of Roman Gabriel, sitting with him on Media Row, meeting all of the wonderful NFL players and other great athletes and people who are big influencers in the Super Bowl project. So it was a great experience. That's one of the biggest things I have learned in media is you can't stay at home and get all of the information you need to go out there and experience and participate, get the real stories from the real people and learn what's going on rather than just hearing it through the grapevines and then it's repeated over and over. I tried to truly get the real stories, just like all of our other great hosts do. We try to learn as much as we can while we're out there. But what a great experience. I don't know if I'm looking forward to going back into that crowd again, but being part of Roman Gabriel's team in the media sector is going to be a great experience. It was a lot of fun this year.
Yeah.
I was
One thing
just
we
talk-
want. Yeah, go on, Rick.
so I was just talking with a friend last night about how we decided that athletes and entertainers seem to be like nicer, better people than tech billionaires.
Oh, that's because they're more normal. But that's a whole nother story. What we'll also want to discuss today is this thing that's going on called media layoffs. But it looks to me most of the media layoffs are taking place in the print industry. So apparently, Sports Illustrated laid off a bunch of people, and also I think it was the Washington Post, New York Times. In other words, last several weeks, 20,000 people in media got laid off. A lot of them that are in print media. So are we seeing the demise and the death of print media? Is this just going to evaporate? Yeah, what are your thoughts, Rick?
I think it probably died a little. I don't know. This is just zombie print media at this point. It died a while back. The LA Times 2 weeks ago laid off 150 people out of a staff of about 700. Our paper, which is one of the great American newspapers, went from, I don't know, being 100 pages thick to being 20 pages thick on an average day. And we still pay $1.50 a day for it. Magazines, my wife used to get the September issue of Vogue, which could run 600 pages with all the ads. Now it's, maybe 200 pages. And it's just weird to even look at magazines anymore.
Yeah. Oprah Winfrey used to have a magazine called O. We used to get it. And then all of a sudden it's gone completely. In other words, it seems to me everything in print media is just dying if it's not already dead already. In Raleigh, they have
I hate to be the contrary here, but there is print media is still alive and well. It's just not necessarily in the newspaper stands, but you can still go get a copy of the Herald Sun or the News and Observer if you're here in the Raleigh area. And there are people that are still getting the copy of the paper because there are people that still like to read, and they like to read the hard copy edition. But a lot of people are also looking at it online, because definitely a number of the newspapers that you are talking about, including those that are laying off folks, part of the reason they're laying off folks is because they are sometimes doing it online version as well. So definitely, and there are a number of magazines that are doing quite well. There's a magazine here that covers Durham, called the Durham Magazine, and it's actually owned by a couple of folks that they do like these lovely glossy form magazines, similar to Newsweek, where they will cover some of the goings on, the social events. And there's one for Durham, one for Raleigh, one for Chapel Hill, and it's all owned by the same company and all along those lines. So definitely there is still hope for those that want to go into print journalism. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a journalism student recently and everything, and they are looking to go to work and are still planning to have a degree, contrary to you thinking that it is a useless degree and all in that space, Nick. Well, they are studying at great institutions like UNC and other places, and I think that they will still have work to do. They said that the printing press was going to be the death of a lot of things, and they said the telephone was going to be the death of a lot of things, and I think that the newspaper will still be around. It was around in Ben Franklin's day, and I think that even though you and I might not be around in the year 2124, I would almost hazard to bet that the newspaper in one form or fashion will be around in that particular year and everything. It might not be the one that we were used to and all along those lines, but if you ever saw the play Newsies, you will also know that sometimes you can see something that is different from the way it was then, because Newsies was about the old hawking guys that would hawk the newspapers, and those people are not around anymore. So that job has definitely gone of the way of, maybe not the dodo bird, because there might be some places around the world that they still have people hawking the newspapers, which is basically what Newsies was about, which is a play that came out sometime back and all along those lines. And speaking of things that were fun to do, Kim, and then I'll shut up and everything. While you were having fun at the Super Bowl, I had a little bit of fun as well. So I went to go see a play this past weekend, and I told Nick this, and it was a great play. If you get a chance to see it, it has concluded its run here and everything. But I went to go see the play Ain't Too Proud, which is about the Temptations. So I saw that over this past weekend, and it was some great music of the Temptations sounds and all along those lines. And it also told the stories of their life, which is definitely full of some ups and downs. And one of the guys had lost his son in a construction accident. And of course, there was drugs and abuse and a number of other things that are part of the narrative of success in the song world sometimes and everything. But it is a very powerful touring play. So I know that it is going, I believe, up to the Northeast and traveling to other places. But I did go see it here in Durham, and it was a great production. So to Toby, I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but it was a powerful production.
I hadn't had a chance to see it yet. No, I was just thrown off because I noticed the background changed and somebody playing with the background with the live StreamYard popped up and doing all the stuff.
The guy who's playing with it doesn't know what he's doing. I think Sasha had a comment, so we'll listen to what he has to say.
Okay, you're talking about my comment. Okay, let me get around. I had several comments. Now I have to remember which one I wanted to say just about 5 minutes ago, while allowing Mark finish his monologue.
No problem.
So let me remember something. So we were talking about Super Bowl. Okay. about Super Bowl. That was the first ever Super Bowl that I was watching from the beginning to the end. The only reason was that I put a $50 bet on Oklahoma. So they were losing at the time 13-0. So I put a bet that Oklahoma would win plus
In Kansas City.
8.5.
Close enough.
All I need them to lose no more than 8 points to win the bet. Apparently they won. So that sort of kept me somewhat interested in that. However, as I said, the middle game show was absolutely fantastic. That was worth watching, really, much more than the game itself, in my opinion. But so was, and I said on another show, was in Grammy's performance of Stevie Wonder. Among others, I mean, Billy Joel was pretty good and so on, but Steve Wonder, that was absolutely unique performance. So I wish those programs they would show more often on TV instead of every day's dose of garbage what we are seeing.
We got a call. Hey, Nick, just really quickly while we have that interrupted call and everything, you can actually go to Oprah.com. The magazine still exists, and they actually just finished doing an interview with 20 questions to Michelle Obama for Oprah magazine. So the magazine does still exist. It may not be in the physical magazine form.
Okay, just not completely dead. Yeah, Rick.
So with the possible demise of print media, are the way we absorb information via online media has changed our thought patterns and our attention span. I used to read a ton of books. Now I can barely get through a book every few weeks. And, with a newspaper or a magazine, you go through it page by page and you see stuff about all sorts of stuff. With a Google search, you just get the pertinent information instantaneously, and people's tolerance for exploring other stuff has been reduced.
Interestingly enough, about a Super Bowl ad that tried to bring that up was from a social media company, Snapchat. They actually had an ad that talked about how our attention span and how it makes people their social media stars and looking for clicks and looking for likes and looking for wants and all this other stuff. And Snapchat, of all companies, was saying that, hey, instead of doing that, get offline and get more friends. But yes, our media habits have changed. Our media layoffs are always going to come right now because, especially with the advent of AI, which was another Super Bowl ad that talked about Copilot, which came from Cortana and was Bing. Microsoft is always changing the name of their product because of the bad press that it ends up getting for the things that it ends up doing, and being the evil empire people feel Microsoft is.
This was the first AI Super Bowl. There were about a dozen ads that either were selling AI or incorporated AI, or for a company like Temu that intensely uses AI. And we should explain what AI is in this context. It's huge data sets used in a predictive manner.
Easier put, it's just a Google search.
So.
I mean, it's a data pile, and you put in information that you're looking for, and it pops it right back out.
But even the Jesus ad, the images used,
that was AI,
where people are washing people's feet to show tolerance. So, like a redneck is washing a liberal's feet, or and all those images looked like they were generated by AI.
They were.
Yeah, Sasha.
Okay, I wanted to tell you something interesting about the dying print. For several years, my favorite newspaper was Investors Business Daily, and there was only one place in my area in Toronto where I could buy on Saturday the weekly version of the newspaper. And I was waiting for a Saturday to go there in the morning and buy this newspaper for, I don't remember, $2.50 probably or something. Then for several years, I noticed that they no longer sell the Investors Business Daily. And I was inquiring about that, and they said that there is very little interest to this paper, so we decided not to sell it anymore. Okay, so I was for a few years without Investors Business Daily. And then I've realized that it's online, and most of the material is actually free. So you can see the most important information. Now you can subscribe and also to several modules of that. And now I think they were acquired by Dow Jones publications. So it's so useful. It's on time. It's every day. It's full of fresh ideas. It's by the way, the rules, what they are preaching, same rules what William O'Neill was talking about when I read my first Investors Business Day, probably 30, maybe 35 years ago. They're still in place. They're still the same. Well, you were talking about an hour ago on literacy, the education, and so on. It's William O'Neill who said if the stock is going down 7%, sell. No question asked. Just sell. First sell, then ask the questions. This is number two, also when to sell the stock. It works most of the time for stocks, not for options. Options are slightly different. But for stocks, very easy. You bought stock for $100. It went down to 93. You press sell. Period. Without thinking, it can recover. Yeah, it can recover. It will go down to 75, and then it will start for 3 years recovery. Yeah, we know all that. But it all comes with experience. And then William O'Neill, late William O'Neill, unfortunately, he knew that from his great experience. And by the way, he made it to the book Market Wizards, which I show on financial shows. And I rely on his observations a lot. He's really, really great. Was a great investor, and his advice is still difficult to overestimate.
So it's also the speed of messaging that in print, in the time it takes you to read a 10,000 word magazine article, you can go on your phone, you can go, and you can absorb 150 short messages from your various feeds, and people are not resistant to propaganda that comes in that form. But out of 150 messages, some are from your friends, some are ads, and some are political messaging, that will, in the aggregate, after 3 days of 1,200 messages a day, you're gonna start maybe believing bullshit.
Hey, but Rick, along those same lines and everything, and this is something that I know Nick talks about somewhat, and other people talk about it as well. There is this notion of the digital divide, and some people want to believe in the digital divide, others don't want to believe in the digital divide. But there is people that are talking about, just like there are food deserts, there could be news deserts and all in that space. So if there is not a way to protect the newspapers that exist, particularly in small towns and all along those lines, then people may not have access and may not have the knowledge that they need to have, and all in that kind of way. So I just wanted y'all's thoughts about this notion, just like there are food deserts, that we could be creating news deserts if we don't have papers staying abreast of situations, say in Lincoln, Nebraska, or Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Kansas City, or a number of these other places that may not have the newspapers that they once had.
Well, see, I think that the newspaper is like a dinosaur. It's just it's there, it's dead, and that's about it. And it was big at one time, but forget it. In terms of a information desert, we find even on Pod TV, our network, most people actually watch us on the mobile phone. Oddly enough, in other words, this month there'll be 55,000 people. They'll be viewing our content on their mobile phones. Which seems to be a great way for people to get content. Then desktops. There's about 23,000 people a month who watch us on desktops, and then on television. Even though we have 4 Roku channels, All you have to do is go to Roku, your smart TV, type in Pod TV. There's only about 1,000 people who'll be watching us on the Roku TV channel. So I'm trying to get more people to watch on television, but you have to imagine these crazy cell phones, they dominate people's information. At least it does on the Pod TV network. It's twice as much as the desktop and about 50 times greater than the television. Where when I was growing up, it was television was the big thing. So it's changed a lot.
It's so one of the things that I think that we forget to look at because of the stigma around it is gaming is always the canary in the coal mine. The tech world has been following a lot of the gamification of everything. I mean, gaming, for example, there are more people that, play games on their cell phones. It's the fastest growing industry right now in terms of games, game-wise, than playing on consoles, playing on the computer, and playing on the PCs. I mean, playing on different sit-down areas because you're always on the move. And the technology itself behind these, I mean, this right here has enough power to play pretty much any game that I want. The iPhone that they just released, they actually have it set to, if I remember, you can download $49 games and play those on your phone.
But you told me that comes back to the whole notion. That comes back to the whole notion of the newspapers and the future of the newspaper and everything. Because gamification has been around forever and all along those lines. Yes, I know video games is at the leading forefront of that, but the number one reason in many people's minds, and I hate to put it because one of them people may think it as morbid and everything, but the number one reason that people buy a newspaper, and that's why I think the newspaper will still be around, is because they want to see, one, they want to read the comic books. Yes, a lot of adults still read the comic books and everything along those lines. They want to see what's going on in that whole horoscope notion and all along those lines. So they want to know how their day is going to go in that space. And then a lot of people love, and this is where gamification comes in, the cryptic quotes and the crossword puzzles and a lot of the other games that are in a newspaper and have stayed in the newspaper forever. And I do know people that buy the newspaper for that reason. And then the morbid reason that I was going to mention is that if you ever watch the old show, Sanford and Son, and some of the other shows like that, yes, people do like to get the newspaper to read the obits, one, to make sure that they're not in there, and two, to see which of their friends are in there and everything along those lines. So those things are still going to exist for a while, and there are a number of people that will get the papers for those reasons.
So gaming probably makes your brain work better. I would guess that they will find, as the gaming generation ages, that the people who are the most active gamers are the most resistant to Alzheimer's, because you're reacting super fast to stimuli for hours at a time, which is really good for your brain. They used to say the best way to study for the SAT verbal section was to read the newspaper. Now newspapers are what kid reads a newspaper? And also the SAT went away. It was dying, and then COVID pretty much killed it, except for certain elite students.
The SAT is not going to work for a standardized testing company.
Thousands of colleges have said you don't need to submit your SAT scores anymore.
It's all about evolution, and that is evolution of the crossword puzzle. Crossword puzzle evolved into Wordle.
Right.
Wordle
Exactly.
is no more than just the crossword puzzle in a game way. That's all it is. You're trying to figure out what letters fit in there, and you're guessing the letters and guessing what word it is. That's all Wordle is. And then until local media, local print media and stuff like that, and once they begin to evolve and figure out ways to evolve with the times and the technology and the gamification, AI and everything else, local news can still exist. It's just the evolution of it, and the money behind it is another issue. But mainly, it's just the evolution of how people receive their media, today. I mean, what draws them to particular things? You can, what's going on with here locally in Durham. I mean, there's a local story there that many people are drawn to. But hey, in the local paper, you've got to be able to gamify it or be able to attract people to get them to stay on the story and focus on that story. So local print media can live. It's just if you don't evolve, it's not going to live.
Rick, I see you had a question as well.
Well, your success in the future will depend, at least in part, on which technologies and information feeds you pick. We saw that with COVID. If you picked far right information news sources, they would tell you that the vaccine will kill you and that COVID is just a bad cold. And those people died at a higher rate from bad information.
Yeah, but Rick, there's another thing that goes on as well, and this is for you, Nick, and everything. But and I'd love to hear Sasha's thoughts. There are a number of companies that have gone and made it their business to buy up the local newspapers, even to what Jacoby is talking about, the local magazines. I think that there's a couple of them that have been bought up by Gannett and Knight Ridder and a couple of those other ones, though. There is a sense of a monopoly in the media landscape as well. And it's not just print media, that's also existent on radio. If you're in part of the urban radio landscape, you know what Radio One is, and Radio One owns a number of radio stations around the country. Clear Channel owns a number, so there are a select few media companies that own the vast majority of the media outlets, and that becomes a story and an issue as well, unless of course you're investing in those companies. And that's why I said Sasha might have some interest in that, because if you're investing in those companies and they're making tons of money, it might make you a ton of money as well. But I just wondering y'all thoughts around these companies.
It's bad for radio. Radio is a fallen medium. Radio, in the 1930s, it was the best medium because it was cutting edge technology. It's what everybody paid attention to. Now, 100 years later, it's crappy. It's owned by, monopoly. Clear Channel owns, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of stations. They don't even have real DJs on a lot of the stations, and you get a crappy product.
Well, think about what you're talking about, Mark, also is groups like Sinclair Media or Sinclair Broadcast Group. They own 185 stations across the whole different areas. They actually, and this, hate to add in a little the political side. I hate hearing that the media is liberal. I hate that. Why? Because it's untrue. Local media is owned by many right-wing groups, a lot. The local media is actually where you hear a lot of the talking points that come through, not the national media, mainly the local media. Right. Fox News actually has the largest base. Rush Limbaugh used to have the largest radio base. So right-wing media is the main media that's out there. So yes, a lot of it does, just as Rick was talking about, it condenses and you don't get that actual creativity that's out there. Hence the reason why, even if you take it away from the whole political scene and go straight to the creative scene, how when people were upset when HBO was being basically gobbled up, HBO and Max, and then it became HBO and Max, and became Max, and it became, now it's something else, because it's gobbled up, but it's gobbled up because the shareholders want a big piece of the pie, basically. But they're also losing a lot of money. So HBO is not going to be able to take the creative leaps that it did years prior, and they won't, because if it's not going to give you money, if it's not going to bring money into the bank, you're not going to take that creative leap. And that's what ends up happening with a lot of these areas, just like we're talking about.
There is nothing creative things that you should pay your attention to. This is explaining the concentration of ownership. It's optimization of revenue from advertising sources, because once you have 5 newspapers, so you can put your ad in 5 newspapers. If you have 180 newspapers, local, doesn't matter which ones, then you push the same advertising to 180 newspapers. So economy of scale is completely different. So this is a purely business strategy or consideration of ownership. As of radio, yes, it's basically, in my opinion, it's a dying source, because let's see, even if I'm driving somewhere, let's see, to my daughter's cottage for, say, almost 2 hours, I would listen to my iPhone, whatever podcast I'm interested, rather than to radio at all. So I don't really see usefulness of radio as a
So
medium.
you've got some economies of scale and people making economic decisions, but you also have people who don't mind losing a ton of money to push political points of view. Elon Musk buys Twitter for $44 billion. Now it's worth $12.5 billion. He lost $30 billion and he turned Twitter into this kind of libertarian, right-wing, sometimes anti-Semitic. He calls it free speech, but it's a mess. But he somehow doesn't mind having lost $30 billion.
Really crazy.
But for right now, while we're on this subject, let's hear a word from one of our sponsors. We'll be right back.
No problem. Great sponsor.
Hi everyone, this is Kim Callahan with Pod TV and Roman Gabriel.
Sold Out Youth Foundation and the Roman Gabriel Show in New Orleans. I'll be in year 31 of reporting for great players on Radio Row. And guess who's going to be with me in New Orleans on Radio Row? Right here. So we're going to see you in New Orleans for Super Bowl 59 next year, right now.
That's right, next year we'll see you. Thank you, Roman.
So there you go, folks. Two of our biggest sponsors right now, because you can't do any of this without sponsorship. But one of the things I want to emphasize on is we're not taking political pay to boost our network. We're here to share with you the real stories from the real people and as much facts as we possibly can. We're trying to divide ourselves from the political impact that other networks are trying to do. And all too often I hear people ask me or even tell me, if you talked more about the Republicans in a little more favor, I always watch Fox or I always watch CNN, and I go, we're neither. We're neither. We just want to bring you real people, real stories, and maybe a lot of what we say is opinions, but we're just speaking from different factors, and we try to keep it very balanced. And, every show that we do, if we're kind of emphasizing on the Republican, we also try to add in the Democratic side. So there's two sides to every story, two sides to the stories in American politics. We hope to make it three. Go ahead.
So an interesting story about Elon Musk.
Okay. Number one, if you take January 6, 2021, CNN was showing the complete picture of what's happening from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock in the evening. Just picture. You can see the speeches of all the Trump and his, I don't know how you call them, people who support him, okay? Then you could see the resurrection itself when the Capitol building was attacked. Then you could see what's happening in the White House. Just picture, and you could then decide for yourself what you see, what was happening. Now, Fox, on the other hand, didn't show anything. So who is right? So now you're seeing, you just said that there are two sides to each story. So CNN side was see for yourself what's happening. Fox side is you don't see anything, okay? You will just listen to our comments. So where are two sides of each story? Show me. To me.
I've noticed some political shift too is Trump is trying to buy out our political parties. And, I've noticed that they're silencing or censoring and kicking people off the Republican team, especially if they're not doing what Trump wants them to do. As we've just recently noticed this weekend, they've censored some of the Republican Party or have, I guess, kicked them off the team. So to me now, watching politics is kind of like watching football. You just never know who's on whose team. But, you've got people trying to do what's right for everyone, not a political party. And every time I read these articles, it's, oh, he's kind of offended the Republican Party, so we're going to get rid of him. He's not doing what they have, these rules in the Republican Party. I'm sure they do too in Democrat, but so far this past year, I've seen more people get kicked off the Republican Party. I don't know if they're going to get drafted by the Democratic Party, but I'm going to start talking about this like it's sports because this is how it feels. But you know, why do you kick somebody off a party who is for the people, right? And we saw this with the House Speaker. They're for the people, not for a party. And so now the party's like, well, you didn't do anything that benefits the party. But they weren't there to represent the party, I didn't think. So I think we need to change the rules a little bit.
You are talking about a party. Today's the so-called Republican coalition, it is not a party, it's a mafia-like organization, and they are following mafia rules. And if somebody in mafia disagrees with what the top brass decided to do, he is either kicked out or simply liquidated. So one of this is, so far, people are not being physically liquidated. So it's not so bad so far. But we'll see what's happening in the future.
It is sports in that if the player's on your team and he's a dirty player, you still love him in his dirtiness. The Houston Astros cheated their ways to a World Series a few years ago. They didn't lose support in Houston. They're still, I'm sure, crazily.
Yeah, they're still loved in Houston and all along those lines. I did have a quick question for Kim and everything, since she just came back from the Olympics, and there was a lot of people that were there at the Olympics.
Super Bowl.
I mean, I'm sorry. I got the Olympics on my mind.
So we got, hold on, real quick, Mark, before you get to this question. This is hilarious because this is funny. Sasha said that he watched Oklahoma play in the Super Bowl, and now you're saying that Kim went to the Olympics.
I'm probably thinking ahead of the game. I made a mistake. I'm probably thinking ahead of the game. But the question for the Super Bowl, and I've said Super Bowl several times.
Biden got in trouble for that.
My question is for you. My question for Kim is: did she have? Because this is what everybody wants to know on Pod TV and around the world. Did she have a Taylor Swift sighting? Because we know she was seen 14 times and all along those lines. I want to know, did you have a Taylor Swift sighting while you were in Las Vegas? And if so, what was that sighting like and everything? So did you get a chance to have your Taylor Swift sighting?
Oh, yeah. So I will say I felt like I had one because her posters were everywhere being auctioned off for charity. Even one of her guitars, signed guitars. So I felt like I had a Taylor Swift sighting, but officially seeing her in one of the events or getting to meet her, no, I did not. Maybe next year. But it felt like a Taylor Swift sighting. Literally everywhere I went, her posters were everywhere. And let me tell you something, though, too. I hated the fact, I shouldn't use that word, but I was disappointed in a lot of people because a lot of people were dissing her and saying very negative things about her. But this is my perspective. If it wasn't for her, most of the people that are now watching the football games and Super Bowl wouldn't be. There are a lot of Swifties who are never even thought of watching football are now watching football. So if I were the Super Bowl, I'd be promoting the fact that she is there, not putting her down for maybe taking away the limelight, because she's not. She is not. She is adding to their light, and she is adding to their viewership. In fact, many people there, I don't know who to pull for. I just want to see Taylor. Okay, good. You're here. You're here and you're supporting the benefits. Yay.
She's the number one star in the globe.
Yeah.
I mean, had Beyonce been dating a player, she would have been on the screen too. She's the number one star dating the top tight end in the game. One of the most outspoken tight ends in the game. Of course, they've got to put her up there. I mean, I've got no issue with her being there. I was fine. It was just they showed Joe Montana a few times too.
I know.
They showed the other players.
I'd rather say Joe Montana than Joe Rogan. But now I'm going to go back to our friend Elon Musk. Just let you know, okay? Because he's a good friend, obviously, of Rick Rosner. So Elon loses like $30 billion on this Twitter deal because he didn't know what he was doing. Do you know he then went to the Delaware? He was sued because he asked for a pay package from Tesla. You'll like it, a $55 billion pay package from Tesla. Then he was sued, went to the court in Delaware, and the court in Delaware said, that's an excessive pay package. And he's crying because he goes, I can't pay my Tesla loans unless I can rob from, my Twitter loans, unless I can rob from Tesla. And so he wants to reorganize the corporation of Tesla out of the state of Delaware into Texas or Nevada, which is more favorable for him. So he can rip off $55 billion, paying his stupid acquisition of Twitter. And that's what my friend Elon.
He sold his Tesla shares to buy Twitter, and he knew he made his money off of Tesla. So now, everything.
He wants an executive compensation package. Hey, Jatovi, your executive compensation package of $55 billion, not million, not thousand, $55 billion. It was denied. Even Chancery Court.
Well, you can
the other thing. Check this one out. But here, real quick, Sasha. The other thing that he's doing that I thought you were going to bring up too, because now he's going into litigation because he's backing Gina Carano and her lawsuit against Disney because she feels that she was let go of Disney improperly. So Elon Musk is now backing an anti-Semitic woman who was kicked out of Disney.
Well, all of you who follow stock market, you can see what's happened with Tesla shares. And Tesla is actually being kicked off Magnificent Seven because it ruins the picture of fantastic stocks like Nvidia, Microsoft, and Netflix and all others. Tesla is one grossly underperforming, and this is all doing of Elon Musk, nothing else.
You want to talk about owning people and owning your way or buying your way into a market. When you're in Vegas, Tesla owns the parking spaces, some of the best parking spaces for their car only. You cannot park in this space unless you are a Tesla. And it says Tesla parking only. And God forbid if you just kind of pull in there, maybe to turn around or take a break for something because they're empty. They're the ones that are empty. But, somebody will come up and start yelling at you that's a Tesla parking space only. So, but they do, and again, money talks, right? But if you own a Tesla, you get the best parking places in most of the casinos in Vegas. So, and around Vegas, all over.
So somebody asked me to do some homework and research whether Musk is completely a fraud or a genius, charlatan, and it would take many hours of reading and research to really get a complete picture of Musk. He's a smart guy who's intellectually lazy. He gets caught up in BS. He goes on Joe Rogan's show and gets stoned and says a bunch of dumb stuff. Yet he's become the richest man in the world through some very, smart moves. And
but Rick, along those same lines and everything, just really quickly, there was some illusions or some ideas that Beyonce, another major celebrity, may wind up doing a concert up in space. And of course, she's going to need an Elon Musk spaceship in order to do it. So I was just wondering, is Beyonce and Jay-Z going to team up with Elon Musk? And are we going to have this notion that was kind of hinted at during one of her fancy commercials?
I think Beyonce and Jay-Z are not insane, and they're not going to get on a spaceship that has, I don't know, like a 1.5%. They enjoy their lives as billionaires. If you have a 1.5% chance that you're going to blow up in space, why would you do that? Tom Cruise has a deal to shoot a movie up on the International Space Station. Tom Cruise loves insane risks. He'll do it, but I don't think Beyonce will.
Speaking of the risk, and this is one thing that Sasha brought up about the Tesla shares and stuff. A big reason, which is crazy, and this is how Elon, his egomaniacal, and so the reason why a lot of problems are happening at Tesla, and especially because why he's fighting to get those shares back, because he knows that yes, that's where he got his money. And where are the biggest jumps right now? And like Nvidia, what we were talking about earlier, AI. Elon is actually going out there and fighting against Tesla from jumping in and becoming one of the leaders in AI. Why? Because he doesn't have the shares. And because he knows that as soon as Tesla jumps on AI, because they actually were on the forefront of the whole EV market, he knows that those shares are going to skyrocket. And if he doesn't have those shares, he's not getting into the money, that piggy bank that's going to be there. So yeah. Elon, that
actually, I've just read overnight information that the biggest U.S. pension funds, including California fund, which has about $500 billion in cash, they are all buying Nvidia shares like crazy. They're buying millions and millions of shares, and that also keeps driving Nvidia shares higher and higher and higher. Last week, I must tell you, I sold probably 75% of all my positions and got into Nvidia, whether it's a shares is covered called the Dutch or naked puts sold and so on. So I've amassed a pretty big position there. But however, I wanted to mention something that Tesla is also, if you notice, cutting prices for its cars. Now, does it help them to sell many more cars? We'll see it in next quarterly report. Another reason might be that there is a huge competition from other electric cars makers, to some probably Chinese car makers, electric car makers. And also I've noticed on a Ford report, which was spectacularly good, they've noticed that they're no longer increasing production of electric cars. They are actually increasing production of their regular gas guzzlers cars, because there is a big demand on those cars. People love these cars and so on. And finally, about this parking for Tesla. I remember a story, it was right before the pandemics. I was visiting my friend in Palm Beach, and we went to Breakers, and he wanted to park his car where there is a sign, only luxury cars parking. Now, he had the latest model of Cadillac, and he was arguing with the attendant that Cadillac is no luxury car. And we looked at the parking. Yeah, indeed, there were Mercedes, there were a couple of Lamborghini, but there was no Cadillac. And I couldn't imagine that the Cadillac in the United States is no longer considered to be a luxury car. So anyway, after 10 or 15 minutes of fight, he was allowed to park there, but only for 2 hours.
Wow. I got a quick question for Kim and everything, and it's coming back to the Super Bowl and all on those lines, because I was watching one of the late night shows last night, and they were talking about this rise in knockoff merchandise. So Rick, maybe you saw some as well, but apparently there was like Kansas City Chiefs that had Chiefs misspelled, and they found a lot of confiscated Super Bowl items and all along those lines. So I was just wondering, did you run across that when you were there, and did you see these people that were maybe having Taylor Lift instead of Taylor Swift shirts and a number of other things? Because there was a number of those that looked even kind of funny. I think one had maybe bacon in the title or something, but there were definitely some knockoffs that were out there and everything. I was wondering if you ran across that in Vegas, because Vegas loves those knockoff products.
No, but I wouldn't know one from the other, to be honest with you. And it was so crowded at times. Everything felt like a blur when you're looking at things and looking at people's shirts. And I go, oh, that's a cool shirt, or that's a cool Super Bowl logo, because there were some that were prettier than others. I will say this, what I'm most impressed with is while I was at the airport last night at by 9:30, 9:30 p.m. Their time, they were stocking the champion of the Super Bowl hats and shirts, like literally through the whole airport. So you had all the Super Bowl, hey, come to the Super Bowl, and the two teams are just Super Bowl logo. But at 9:30, I think is when I arrived there. And it was quiet. It was dead quiet. So if you want to get there when you're not having to fight the crowds, get there at 9:30. But literally, like I was watching the guys stack the champion, and I'm like, that is, I guess they pre-print who's going to be the champion on both sides, but I just couldn't believe it. And they were good quality. Like they weren't they were good.
Kim, you even see that in the commercials, because literally the commercials start congratulating the Kansas City Chiefs literally right after the game was over and everything.
And we know that the erroneous shirts and hats end up in the poor countries of the world. They just get shipped to Africa. San Francisco, congratulations, will be worn by people in other countries of the world.
So everybody everybody's gonna learn. Hey, San Francisco
talk about educating people, right? We teach them wrong, right?
It's misinformation.
But the funny thing, Mark, when you talk about knockoffs, one of the biggest commercials that was there that got ran, that was run, I think 3 times. It was Timu. Timu has some knockoff stuff.
Yes.
So you can get some cheap stuff, but you might get one that is a version from some other country that you don't even have the plugs for.
Isn't Timu a Chinese company? It feels like it.
And
China doesn't care about copyright. They will steal everything and make it cheaper and send it right back to you.
But Nick and Kim, y'all heard me earlier on the media show say that I think that we need to advertise. It only costs $7 million. But if our competitor, and you, Nick, have said that Pluto is who you are modeling Pati after to some degree, can have a commercial, because Pluto was all over the TV commercial. I think they ran like 2 or 3 of them and everything. And I thought Pluto was gone, but apparently Pluto's back.
When I looked at Pluto's content, mainly it's just rerun content. It wasn't really, we have original content. We have some reruns, but most of our content's original, and theirs all reruns. So
I think
honestly, filmed live yet. I don't think that they're officially doing true live streaming like we have the capability to do. And again, that's a little secret sauce. The small companies struggle with that platform. Larger companies, of course, NBC, CBS already had it. But they're not officially doing live streaming or original content like what we're doing.
So in all honesty, there's Tubi, which I don't know if you've heard about the controversies behind Tubi and what went on with Tubi. Tubi basically is owned by Fox. It's owned by all the owners of Fox anyway. But in the same fashion, what Tubi did, they went into a lot of independent and a lot of small time content creators or directors, and in a lot of the minority communities, and they actually had a lot of minority directors and producers put up their stuff on Tubi, got a lot of minority individuals hooked on going to Tubi on a regular basis. Now they're changing it. Now they're moving it towards the Fox News-esque style, or the Fox style, which is what actually got them a lot of backing in a lot of the minority communities in Fox. It was the same I guess playbook that they use for creating Fox is the same way they're trying to utilize Tubi. So a lot of individuals in the minority community are upset because they found out how Fox is now doing, well, they're doing a lot of stuff with Fox and how they're doing that same playbook. So a lot of creators are trying to leave out of there.
But to loop it back and everything, and I did see your hand, Rick, but to loop it back and everything to what we were talking about, and as we only got a few minutes to go, this is actually why I think newspapers will survive, because this is actually where a lot of newspapers are at, even in the local market. I guarantee you, Nick, that if you go and look, you can find a paper that is for the elderly here in Durham. You can find a paper that is for the Latin American community that is in Durham. You can find a paper that is for the African American. As a matter of fact, you can find 3 papers that are for the African American community here in Durham. You can find that you probably can even find a Jewish paper here. So I would argue that there are specialty newspapers, maybe maybe not the kind of newspapers that you were thinking, and that's just in this one city. Because I can think of at least 7 papers that I'm aware of that are specialty papers.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that it's kind of like a mature industry. If you look at radio and you look at newspapers and print media, it's probably mature. What I find very interesting about what we're doing is how many people are watching us on mobile phones. For some reason, we get this big distribution through mobile phones. I have to admit, I actually watch a lot of our programming on my mobile phone too. So I'll watch Gamers Den on mobile phone. I'll watch Sasha's show on mobile phone. So I'm kind of like nutty to do that too. But it just seems to me that there's a push toward, and I'm trying to fight it. I'm trying to get more people to watch us on the television thing, because we have 4 channels on Roku, not 1 but 4 on Pod TV, and we don't have a lot of people watching us on the television. We only got about 1,000, like I said.
Well, the more intimate the
Nick, something I want to promote here just a little bit and toot our own horn is we actually have a website where it's free. You don't even, eventually we'll do subscriptions and registration, but all of our content is free, unlike Amazon or Roku, where now they're even wanting you pay for your subscription, you register with them, they take your data and they resell it, but now they want you to pay $3 extra to not have to watch commercials, which I think is a ripoff because you're already paying. So, I mean, we're not charging anything. All our content's free.
Are you going to start moving into scripted stuff? I know you run reruns, but will you ever start making your own like sitcoms and police procedurals and all that stuff?
After we start getting more revenue generated, we're totally nonprofit right now. But when we start generating revenue, our content will become more upscale. Nick and I know how to do that. It just costs money, but yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to say that Jesus spent, I think, $14 million last night on 2 ads. And that's Hobby Lobby doing ads saying people should turn to Jesus. And what that says is that during times when people are confused and miserable, they will turn to making beautiful crafts for solace, to make them, scrapbooking or whatever, to make. I do that myself. I like making pretty stuff to make myself feel better when I'm freaked out about the world.
All I know is Jesus got a lot of money.
It just tells me there's a lot of markup in junk. Okay? Because obviously at Hobby Lobby, they sell a lot of junk, and apparently it must be marked up junk. And people don't go to financial education courses like what Sasha put on, so they buy the junk rather than buying stock in Hobby Lobby. So the minute I see something that's garbage out there and that you're buying, buy their stock. Don't buy them because they suck. Anyway, speaking of which, we're almost past the hour, so we're gonna have to take off. I noticed that David sometimes like this. All right, and we'll see you next week on the Media Show. Everybody have a good week. Or since we're rerun a lot, you might see us randomly on Roku. Take care. We'll see you next week.